As Alan just said, it's going to take a miracle, but I don't believe that. I just believe it takes common sense. And for our particular community to begin opening their eyes, que abran los ojos. And that they say what our motto is here at the Menudo Club, which is what? Ya no más. Everybody, ya no más.
Ya no más. No more.
Okay. Our next distinguished guest was born and raised in Chicago. He graduated from Dundee Crown High School in Carpentersville, Illinois. He went on to Indiana University, where he majored in psychology and wrestled for the Hoosiers. He then served over 28 years in the Marine Corps, reaching the rank of colonel. His combat deployments including leading the 1st Rifle Company of Marines into Baghdad during the March Up, then into Tikrit as part of the conventional warfighting portion of the war in the spring of 2003. There are so many more accomplishments to tell you about regarding this person, but I will leave that up to our special guest. Let us welcome this great American and patriot, retired Marine Colonel Larry Kaifesh.
Okay. All right, well, first, ladies and gentlemen, and Menudo, thank you so much for having me here today to be able to speak with you. It's an honor and a privilege, and I want to commend you and each and every one of you for being here. Because Thomas Jefferson made it crystal clear that the cost of freedom is eternal vigilance. And what you're doing right now is being vigilant. You're coming here on a Saturday on your personal time in order to learn about the critical issues, support the excellent candidates, listen and learn, and be able to connect better with the community. And that's essential. And that's really what we need to have if we're going to prevail. So I thank you and commend you for your vigilance in doing what we need to do to save America. Eduardo, thank you so much for that beautiful introduction. And I need to just add a little dovetail because it's going to be important to what this discussion is about. But as he mentioned, 7 combat tours for the Middle East after the attacks of 9/11 because I felt it was the right thing to do. In between those deployments, for almost 20 years, I worked on Capitol Hill as Congressional Fellow. I worked in the Pentagon as the battle captain for the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff and Secretary of Defense. I was fortunate to be able to be sent to the Naval War College in Newport, Rhode Island to get a Master's in National Security and Strategic Studies. And then I also took a sabbatical of sorts and ran for Congress against Tammy Duckworth in Illinois.
Oh, wow.
Okay? She was a congresswoman at the time. She's now the senator from Illinois. And she was on the short list in 2020 to be the VP. She and Kamala Harris were battling it out. But I bring that up because it's important when we start to talk about this discussion. So I'm going to move this computer here. I'll handle my own slides here. But can everybody see that beautiful picture? Oh no, it's gone. Let's see.
There you go.
Okay.
There you go.
There.
We see the beautiful picture.
Yeah, there's the beautiful picture. All right, so this slide here, it just kind of captures what we're kind of dealing with today. We're going to talk about the threat of the globalists. All right, basically, this should be a train, not a truck, right? Being driven by the Democratic Party. Sadly, we have the rhinos, which is the big chunk of the Republican Party, sitting side by side. And what are they bringing to us? Right? Endless wars, climate change hoax, attacks on our children, a failing economy, mass censorship, digital currency. But there's one thing stopping it, right? Donald Trump and the MAGA movement, which is huge. I'm going to share with you something I normally don't tell people because it's a little bit devastating, but I think it's important to kind of put things in perspective. When I retired, I went back home to Illinois because my folks were getting older and my sister wasn't doing well, so I was there. I took a job as a commandant of a military academy in Chicago Public Schools. So the commandant's kind of like the principal. Chicago Public Schools, as you know, is one of the largest and one of the worst as far as educating children and making sure they're growing up to be productive citizens. But I said, well, this is an opportunity to hopefully discipline, educate, and make some good citizens and good Americans. When I got there, I knew it was going to be a challenge. They went on strike. The teachers went on strike, so we were out for several weeks. We came back, served for a couple more months, and then COVID happened. We were sent home. We were doing education and learning from home, and then we finally came back. And when we came back, the CEO of Chicago Public Schools, who was actually fired from Texas, he was from San Antonio, Pedro Martinez, he was fired because he was pushing mandates and masks and jabs on his staff and his students of the school district, which was not supposed to happen according to the governor and the attorney general. So he was fired. Well, lo and behold, Lori Lightfoot, one of the worst mayors in the history of any city in Chicago, hires him to be the CEO. Well, I get there, and he ends up giving everybody in the school district the day off so they can get their 5 to 11-year-olds vaccinated and boosted. So this is in the fall of 2021. And I'm like, this is madness. This is not good. We know the jabs are not safe nor effective. I've been working with Dr. Robert Malone, Peter McCullough, Mary Talley Bowden up there at United Methodist already. So I had to respond. I responded with an email to the cadets and the parents. I said, please, before you do anything with a vaccine or a booster, talk to your doctor about the data, government data that you can find on open VAERS, the Vaccine Adverse Event Reporting System. And at that time, there were 18,000 deaths. And the asterisk by that number, if that was only 1% of the real number due to underreporting. Okay, this was not good. Well, it didn't take long. I sent that email out to everybody. I get a call. Did you just send this email? I said, I certainly did. You are suspended. You can't do that. I said, are you sure about that? It's called providing informed consent. Okay, informed consent is for authority figures to share benefits and risks of any drug or any vaccine, especially one that's experimental. So we're going to investigate you and we're going to find out what you did. I said, well, there's my email here. I was very proud of it. I was fired a couple months later. It was one of the proudest days of my life. And when that happened, I'm like, I knew I'd get a response, but I didn't expect it to be that. I didn't know why. So I started doing some research. I started learning a lot. I started realizing what in the world is going on here. I started a blog to get this word out. A person asked me to do a podcast, so I started doing podcasts. I opened up a Substack account. I did some writing. I do some writing for Texas Scorecard. But a light bulb went off because 5 to 6 years before that, and this is the story I don't normally tell. A good friend of mine, I won't mention who, but he was a fellow Marine, was going to run for Congress in a southern state. And we were talking, I went down there and I helped him get up and running. He goes, let's go to DC and talk to a general we know very well in the Pentagon. Let's tell him what we're doing and see if we can get some support and rally the troops. I said, let's do it. So we go to the Pentagon. When we get to the Pentagon, we're in the general's office. He comes out, we sit down, we start chit-chatting. And then the general looks to my very good friend getting ready to run for office for Congress. And he says, why are you doing this? I said, why are you running for office? My good friend, a patriot. So what do you think? I'm trying to bring Marine Corps leadership to Capitol Hill. The general looks at him and says, it's too far gone, even if we want you to make a difference. It's too far gone, and even if you won, you wouldn't make a difference. Now you talk about a gut punch. None of us was expecting that. And at that time I was wondering, what the hell is he talking about? We looked at each other speechless. This general's an honest, brutal guy. Now let me make this something perfectly clear. I don't believe that. Okay? Because it's never over unless we stop fighting. And if we are patriots that love God, family, country, and the Constitution, we will never stop fighting. So the word was a gut punch, but I think it was a warning order. But at that point, I never knew what it was. It wasn't until years later when I got fired and I started doing my research, I realized what he was talking about. And it's this. The globalist agenda. I'm going to use the term globalist. Some call them deep state, right? Some call them the uniparty. For this discussion, the term is globalists, pushing globalism. And I think you're all a smart group. I'm going to do a quick inventory on knowledge, because I think everybody here is very familiar. But it can go very deep. But you all know Klaus Schwab, George Soros, World Economic Forum, Trilateral Commission, technocrats, Catherine Austin Fitts, Patrick Wood. Okay. All right, so you got a real good detail, but I'm going to probably delve a little bit deeper and hopefully share with you something you don't know. This is a very famous quote written by General Karl von Clausewitz. Anybody who is in the infantry, in the military, has done some studying. He's wrote a big, prolific book called On War. It's about 2 to 3 inches, very small print. But every age has its own kind of war, its own limiting conditions, and its own peculiar preconceptions. And what we are in what they call 5th generation warfare. And this is reported by General Michael Flynn. Do you all know?
Yeah.
Oh.
I had a chance to do some good podcasts with General Flynn and talk to him about this direct. But this is what he is advertising and talking about. 5th generation warfare. First generation warfare is warfare before we had gunpowder, bullets, and guns. That was first generation warfare. We used swords, bow and arrows, shields. Second generation warfare is when we used gunpowder, bullets, and guns. Think of the Revolutionary War, muskets. Third generation warfare is when we started using heavy equipment, planes, tanks, trench warfare. Think of World War I. Fourth generation warfare is when we introduced weapons of mass destruction, nuclear, biological, and chemical. And 5th generation warfare is what we are in right now, has always existed, but it's never been as effective or as damaging because we didn't have the technology. But the technology is now there. And that is a war for our minds, using information. Using information. We are in an information war, and their goal is to control us through our own minds. Okay? So now, who are the globalists? The globalists essentially are a group of folks, and we're going to go delve deeper in it, but generically, what they want to do is a one-world government that puts we the people into a digital concentration camp where we are controlled through central bank digital currencies, universal basic income, social credit scores, all the stuff that's happening in China. Okay? 5G network towers, etc. I'll go deeper. So this discussion is the who, what, when, where, and why are the globalists, and why is it important? Why is it important to know who these globalists are and what they're doing? As you can see here, Sun Tzu, The Art of War. I'll hold a second. If you know yourself and you know the enemy, in 1,000 battles you will not lose one. If you know yourself but not the enemy, for every battle you win, you will lose. And if you don't know yourself and don't know the enemy, you will win never a battle. So this is why it's so critical. And think about this. I was in the Marine Corps for 28 years, had a top secret SCI clearance, went to the War College, worked in the Pentagon, ran for, I did not know any of this while I was there. Nobody had talked about this. I had to get fired and start doing my own personal research before I was able to learn and get ahead. And this is by design. This is why they've been able to make so much progress so soon. Because they've been doing it in a subversive manner. Because if it was open, it'd be a different story. Now, we've seen this battle for globalism from the beginning of time. If you look at the Tower of Babel, Nimrod wanted one world government. God didn't let it happen and made sure it fell apart. If you look at Alexander the Great, the intentions were a one world government. If you looked at the Romans, you looked at the Nazis, you looked at the Soviets, it was all the same design. The problem was they went after it in a military fashion, using force. You can't hide that. And the masses of people can stand up and repress it. So the globalists were sophisticated enough to realize we're not going to be able to do it militarily. So we have to do it in another manner. And that's why we're fighting this war of information. And doing it by controlling us and our minds. This slide is extremely powerful and extremely critical. Has anybody seen this slide before? The reason this slide is so important because it gives us a snapshot that most people have never seen or heard of. But this is the organizational structure for the globalists. Where they are and what they do and what we're going on. If you look at the very top, this is a financial coup d'etat run by the Bank of International Settlements and the central banks. Those are the folks driving the train. The policymakers is the World Economic Forum, the Council of Foreign Relations, the Club of Rome, Chatham House Rules, Rockefeller Foundation. The Trilateral Commission should be included here. They've kind of merged with the World Economic Forum. But those are the policymakers. Those are the think tanks. Those are the ones pushing these ideas down. The next slide is the policy distributors. Most of these are global entities. United Nations, the IMF, International Monetary Fund, the IPC, the International Panel of Climate Control, World Bank, the World Health Organization, philanthropists, global corporation, NGOs, non-government organizations. And included in there should be also asset managers like BlackRock, State Street, Vanguard, okay? These are the policy distributors. They're the ones that are pushing these ideas down. Now the fact that the policy contributors, these are our national governments. The national governments and selected scientific authorities such as the CDC, NIH, FDA. Remember who was running the show during COVID? It wasn't our elected politicians, but unelected politicians who were running the CDC and the FDA and the NIH. Okay? The policy propagandists. This is your corporate media that's owned by the globalists. This is your social media platforms, the vast majority of them. Okay? Your fact checkers. And then here are the public, the policy subjects. Now, if you look at that, it looks pretty daunting. These globalists are smart, well planned out, and committed. The problem is their numbers are small. If you look at this, we're talking maybe 5,000 folks, maybe 5 to 10, give or take a little bit. And of that group, only a small group are really leading the charge. The other ones are facilitators, and the other ones not really sure what they're doing. But you look down here, we got 8 billion people globally. 8 billion. So their power and influence is great, but their size and numbers are very small. I'm going to give you a little story to kind of give where this all started. But the Trilateral Commission, which should be here, which kind of morphed into the World Economic Forum, was kind of the start. This war has been going on in a subversive manner for, I'm going to say, about 50 years in a significant manner. Okay, 50 years. And that's when the Trilateral Commission came to power. Do you all know the technocrats? In the 1930s, a group of technocrats got together in the basement of Hamilton Hall. And that's at Columbia University. And the technocrats are scientists, engineers, and academics. They have a godlike complex. They think they're smarter than everybody, and they hate politicians. And after the Great Depression, they're like, our system is flawed. We need to come up with a new system. So the technocrats started meeting in the basement of Hamilton Hall on Columbia University. And they were looking at what kind of system can we develop that's better than what we have. And on the other side of the hall was a group of techies. So technocrats are working on systems. Techies are working on devices. These folks were at the beginning of IBM. They were technologists, right? They were trying to build technology to create better equipment. They were trying to create better systems. That was in the 1930s. Problem is we had a war break out, World War II. Then we had Korea. Then we had Vietnam. And they were all kind of subdued. Not much was going on. But in 1970s is when most of these organizations started to come back. In 1972 is when the Trilateral Commission came about. And the Trilateral Commission was started by David Rockefeller and Zbigniew Brzezinski, who was the National Security Advisor for Jimmy Carter. The Jimmy Carter administration was the first administration to be saturated with globalists. People that wanted to destroy America, because you can't have a global government if you've got a strong sovereign country that supports the Constitution. If you look at what's happening in America today, the reason it looks like we're trying to destroy America is because they are. The reckless spending, the open borders, the projection of war, okay? These two wars, Ukraine and Israel, totally provoked, facilitated by our own government. We're on the verge of World War III with Russia and nuclear power, all by design. They need chaos. They want to collapse the system because if they can collapse the system, they can say, oh, democracy didn't work, we've got to bring in our system, which is the Great Reset, which is with their global ambitions. This is all being done deliberately. Okay? So, the Trilateral Commission, if you look at the Carter administration, it's no wonder it was horrendous. In fact, the last one was almost as bad as Biden's. But Carter was there, but then who came in? Reagan. Now, Reagan was not a globalist. Reagan was a patriot who loved America and fought for America and put America first. And we had 8 years of brilliance. The globalists recognized, this guy's going to derail our efforts. And he did, he set it back. Because originally, the agenda for the Great Reset was Agenda 21. They thought it was going to be done in 2021. They pushed it back to 2030. We've all heard that, right? The Great Reset, 2030. So when Clinton got in office, he recognized we got to be a lot more subtle with our actions and activities. Otherwise, we're going to be exposed. Okay? But we had Bush Senior come in, and he was a globalist. In fact, the first time I ever heard the New World Order came out of his mouth before Desert Storm. And I didn't know what it was. It was in plain sight. The global agenda had been there for a long time. Okay? And then we had George Bush Senior, or George W. Bush, George W., a globalist. And he facilitated the movement when you look at what happened on 9/11 and the Patriot Act. Remember that? And then, of course, we had Obama. And then Obama pressed the gas. A lot of things happened under Obama's watch. And then, God willing, we had Trump interrupt and show the difference of what a globalist is and an America First candidate is. They stole the election in 2020. They put another globalist in. This is Obama's third term, and you see what's happening. They're punching the gas because they realize it's going to be derailed. And they've already said it. Yuval Noah Harari, the lead advisor to Klaus Schwab, has said, if Trump gets elected, our global ambitions are over. That's how powerful and that's how important this election is. So they're going to do everything they can to derail it. But that is how important it is. If he gets elected, the globalist effort is over, and we need it to be over. But this slide is critical because it gives you a nice snapshot of who, what, when, where, and why. All right. In order to win in any battle, it's important to know what the enemy's center of gravity is. The center of gravity is what the enemy needs to survive and gives them the greatest strength, and if taken away, will ensure their demise. Does anybody have an idea of what's the center of gravity for this globalist enemy?
Mainstream media.
What do they need more than anything? Who's it?
Mainstream media. Is that the media?
Information, control of information.
All right, you guys are a smart group. All right.
I worked at the Joint Information Operations Center. So
Are you serious?
I'm serious. We'll talk afterwards.
Well, I work in the NGO.
You work
The Joint Operations Intel Center
Oh, okay.
in the Pentagon.
Okay,
We
we
can
can
talk
talk
to
to San Antonio.
Okay, awesome. But the beautiful thing about this, and this is what needs to give us all hope, is that the center of gravity for the enemy is their monopoly on information. They are controlling the narratives. If you control the narrative, you control the story, you control the world. But the beautiful thing about that is they can't survive the truth. They can't survive the truth. If people know the truth, they are gone. And the truth is like a lion. You don't need to defend it, you just need to let it go. It'll defend itself. And that is why the most important thing we can do every single day, and why I'm here today, is to make sure we know what the truth is and make sure we're getting it out to the public. Fortunately, it's happening. We just got to make sure it's happening faster and sooner. But the center of gravity, ladies and gentlemen, is the truth. They can't survive the truth, and that is why they must lie, they must cheat, they must censor, they must attack. That's why I got fired, because I shared the truth. Okay? That's why people are attacked. If you really want to get to the truth, because I hear a lot of people say, well, how do I even know what to believe? I hear this. Talk to the folks and the sources that have been canceled, censored, or attacked. They're telling the truth. Anything you see on MSNBC, corporate media is all garbage. I mean, there may be truths weaved into it, but it's there created to support their agenda. Did you have a question, Matt?
I do. I mean, you've probably read the book Rules for Radicals.
Of course I have, yeah. Saul Alinsky, he's in Chicago.
Yeah, you were in Chicago. And so
I'm from a suburb, so maybe be clear, I'm not a city boy. I'm a
But that's what Obama used.
Yeah.
That's what Hillary Clinton wrote her thesis on in college. I mean, it's a mind.
Yeah. And that is a good strategy that they've been using. Exactly. What do all these topics have in common? Take a look. President Kennedy's assassination, President Trump's assassination attempt, the moon landing, fairest elections ever in 2020, Russia collusion. You know, we can go on and on. Zelensky as a paragon of democracy, Maui and Chile fires. These are all serious, significant issues that we have been lied to, misled, misinformed by our government and our own media. Let's just take a couple. President Trump assassination attempt. Does anybody here believe a kid with acne, long hair, raggedy shorts, never spent a day in the military, 20 years old, recluse, was able to get by hundreds of Secret Service agents, federal agents, local law enforcement agencies, to go to a rooftop, which was the #1 spot. You don't even have to know about security. If you ask a kindergarten what should be protected, they would know that. Most people don't know, but the building that he was on was designated as the control center for the counter sniper for the Secret Service. Okay? But he was able to get up there without notice and take 5 shots. Okay? The reality is, there are some great analysis being done online from private citizens. Dr. Martinson's doing the best job according to his acoustic analysis. And what he's identified, there's been at least 4 shooters identified, probably 5. Several of the rounds happened from the building within. They believe 5 rounds happened from the rooftop. Okay, and then we know that there was 2 other law enforcement, 1 local law enforcement and 1 Secret Service counter sniper that took a shot. And then there's another analysis that's also equally good that thinks there may be another shooter that fired 3 rounds with a suppressor with subsonic ammunition, which means it doesn't break the sound barrier, so you don't hear it. It's almost silent. So the bottom line is a complete lie. Okay, and we can go down. We can spend hours on every single one of these. Okay, but we can go on and complain. But why is this happening? Does anybody know about the Smith-Mundt Act? Smith-Mundt Act? Okay. The Smith-Mundt Act was originally written in 1948. And basically what it's a piece of legislation.
Can you say it again one more time?
Smith-Mundt, by the creators of the piece of legislation. 1948. And what it said that the United States government, along with the media, was allowed to use propaganda and misinformation on foreign nations and foreign citizens. Okay, that was a Smith-Mundt Act written in 1948. After World War II with Germany and Japan, maybe that was a good idea. 2012, it was revised by Obama, and it was tweaked. The 2012 modernization of the Smith-Mundt Act now allows our government and our media to use propaganda and misinformation on we, the American people. Okay?
That also covers PSYOP, right?
Absolutely.
It's not just propaganda, it's PSYOP.
Well, look, overall, this is an entire psychological operation. Everything that's going on, we're going to talk a lot about the psychology, but that's exactly what's happening. And this is why you have this. We have no truth, but the truth is coming out. Next slide. So in the past, when the globalists really started getting operating in the 1970s, there was only 3 networks, and it was easy for them to control. ABC, CBS, and NBC. They controlled almost 100%. They did not anticipate technology to advance to such a degree where we would have social media, podcasts, different Substack accounts, all that kind of thing. So there's a lot more information out there. So right now, 90% of the information that we get comes from these 6 corporations, all globalist owned. This is all propaganda, misinformation, psychops being pushed by these organizations. Some are more subtle than others. Some are deliberately lies right to your face. And then the 10%, which I'm talking about, the social media outlets that we have, places like Rumble, which are legitimate, and different podcasts from folks like Tucker Carlson and even Alex Jones. Alex Jones was talking about this 25 years ago. People thought he was nuts. The guy's brilliant. He's got some access though. He had some, his father was involved in the CIA, and he had some other contact, but he knew stuff though. He was coming out with people like that. But anyway, that 10% is what's happening right now. We're still getting misinformed and lied to by these organizations, but it's the dam, the crack in the dam is open, and it's only going to get bigger. And there are more cracks in the dam. So we're at a point, we're in a good place, we're moving in the right direction. We just need to continue to get the truth out until it overwhelms and it comes all crashing down, but it's going to be messy. All right, so here are some of the unfortunate news pieces that you're probably all aware of, but we need to discuss. 90% of incumbents get reelected. The longer they're in, the harder they are to get out. Most of them, the longer they're in, the more corrupt they get. Take a look at Biden, take a look at Pelosi, take a look at Schumer, take a look at McConnell. Both parties, both sides. And, it doesn't take long to figure out why. As soon as a person becomes influential in politics, business, or entertainment, they get bought off, blackmailed, or controlled through a control file. And they no longer serve we the people, but themselves. Has anybody heard of Madison Cawthorn? Anybody here know Madison Cawthorn? Young congressman from North Carolina, 26 years old. One of the youngest congressmen to ever get elected. He was in a wheelchair, was in a car accident, he was a younger man. A couple years ago, he came out and said, "You're not going to believe what happened to me." This is when he only served 1 term. Right. Because you're not going to believe what happened to me. What happened? I was invited to go to a party in D.C. There were a lot of sex, a lot of drugs, a lot of inappropriate behavior, and you're not going to believe who was there. The most influential people in the country. The next day, Kevin McCarthy came out, said, "Do not listen to a word that kid said. He's crazy." Da 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 da. And then they ran a candidate against him, got him out of office, and he's never been heard of since. He's doing his own personal thing, but he's been taken down at the knees. But what he was talking about is what happens. Once you get to a certain level, you're going to get controlled or bought off. And in this country, in Western civilization, if you can get somebody with a person that's underage, their lives are done if it goes. But once they have that control file, they can blackmail them, and they don't have to be elected, and they don't have to run the show. You will do what you're told, otherwise you will be gone. We know Epstein was very involved with this, working with our intelligence apparatus. His whole purpose was to make sure he got people of influence politicians, business leaders, entertainers, in compromising positions so that they could be controlled. That is why you see so many people out there like, wait a second, he used to be this way, and now he's this way. What happened? Look at Dan Crenshaw. He was good for 6 months. What happened?
You're like a pirate.
There you go. 6 months. He was good. And this happens to most everybody, okay? I'm not going to say 100%. I do believe we still have some great patriots that are principally driven, but I'll tell you that it's very, very difficult. If you're an honest candidate and you're a principal, you will not get any support from above. But that's okay. You'll still get in because you've got the community, and that's what you need more than anything. But it makes it a lot tougher. Okay? Look at these people that are getting elected. These are horrendous people. Terrible records. No principle. They don't love God, family, country, or the Constitution, but they can be manipulated and they can be controlled, and that's what's going to get them in. And you know, this is probably too easy to know. Most of the federal government at the top rungs have been weaponized to attack those that are not supporting the globalist agenda. Okay? And that's why we're dealing with, why don't we hear somebody on Capitol Hill say the election was stolen in 2020 in the media? Why don't we hear people say the jabs are causing irreparable harm to the global community? Why don't we hear the border that's been left wide open? Most people are silent. And let's be clear, you brought up a great point. Zuckerberg came out and talked about it, but we knew that 2-3 years ago. Everything that they come out, it's because they have to, because if they don't, then they're going to look ridiculous. But they don't do it to the last minute. We knew 2.5 years ago Zuckerberg was doing that. We knew about the Twitter files. We knew about President Trump being spied upon during his first election. So here's a test. Let's see how we do. America, or any nation for that matter, can survive if we have the following. So let's just go down the list. Parental rights. What do you think? Does America have parental rights? Right now, pornography is being pushed through our schools, the over-sexualization, social, emotional learning in our government schools, and even some private schools. I will tell you, when I was the commandant, kind of like a principal at the military academy, one of the counselors come in to me and says, "Sir, we got a problem." I said, "What's the problem?" "Well, Jill, who used to be Johnny, had a suicide ideation." I was like, "Okay." I said, "Let's talk to their parents right away, let them know." She asked me, "What should we do?" "We got to talk to their parents, right?" "Sir, we can't." "Well, what do you mean we can't?" "Well, it's against school policy, the district policy." Jill, who used to be Johnny, doesn't want her parents to know that she's trans, so we can't tell them. I said, "I don't care what the policy is, we need to get those parents involved." But this is what they're trying to do. They're trying to drive a wedge between, they want our children more than anything.
Yeah.
They don't want children raised in a manner that are God-fearing, patriotic, love the Constitution. They want these kids so damaged, so harmed, that they're easy to control and manipulate and be dependent upon by the government. And I will tell you, in Chicago Public Schools, nobody gets held back. Nobody fails. Everybody gets passed. Everybody gets pushed by. No one is being disciplined. These kids are going out, they're completely ill-prepared. A lot of these kids don't even know their reading rights. And this is no mystery. This is happening in all the major cities. But this is how they're doing it. All right, so parental rights, no, sorry. How about border security? Biden came in, the first thing he did is signed over 90 executive orders, all opening the border so it's completely wide. I talked to, I won't mention the name, but a very prominent Texan who spends a lot of time at the border. He said his contacts are telling him the number is 40 million that have come across the border in the last 4 years. 40 million. You hear on the news 7 million, 8 million, 9 million. No, 40 million. And he goes, right now, yeah, it's kind of close, but the reality is we have no idea. All the Border Patrol agents, and you probably have contacts, most of them are doing administrative duties. National Guard that's down there, all they're doing is being logistics. They're transporting people and transporting gear. Nobody's on the border because there's just not enough of them. And they're not committed to it. And it's all by design. So border security, I guess, no. Election integrity, how about that? How are we doing there? The only way, the closest way you're going to get to a fair election is what? Same-day voting, voter IDs, paper ballots, okay? No machines, and the mail-in ballots are only for the military and the folks that really can't, and there's extreme cases only. And then counting the paper ballots at the end of the day in public. That's the closest we're going to get to a fair election, and we are miles and miles away from that. And both parties are involved. Both parties are involved. Medical freedom, how about that? Who here, like, I mean, how many people do we know, or we might even be one of them, were threatened to take the vaccine or lose our job, or mandate? Okay? Too many people across the country were in that very sad predicament. Take the jab or lose the ability to take care of your family. You don't have much of an option, right? So we don't have medical freedom. Religious freedom? How many people here know somebody that's been put in jail because they did something as simple as pray at an abortion clinic? Okay. Christians are targeted. Okay. And then the Bill of Rights and the Constitution, we talked about it. Look what happened. I mean, geez, President Trump, the most powerful man, the President of the United States, was kicked off multiple platforms, and we had mainstream media outlets, corporate media outlets like MSNBC and CNN say, we will not show any of his content. Except they happened to show up at Butler, Pennsylvania for the first time ever. But that's it. And now the Bill of Rights. So, it's not looking good. We're challenged in every one of these three critical areas. How do we win? How do we win? It's easy, but in this circumstance, easy is hard. But first we've got to recognize it's the center of gravity. What's the center of gravity? The truth, information. They cannot survive the truth. So what must we bury them with? The truth. Everywhere you go, no matter what you do, make sure you're sharing the truth. When you hear somebody say something that's propaganda and you know it is just a talking point from MSNBC or CNN, correct them. Have the courage to correct them. And if you hear it twice, then you got to give it to them 10 times. So we have to make sure the truth is getting out. Ignore corporate media unless you're doing it to find out what the enemy wants you to believe. Okay, use it as a tool. So the center of gravity, we must remember what it is and help promote it. Unity. Has anybody here lost a relationship, friend or family, or somebody you don't talk to anymore because of politics? Anybody? I think we're all guilty. This is what the globalists want. This is why they have such an emphasis on division. Okay, when you divide an organization, a society, you make them weak. And we're divided on what? Race, gender, religion, sex, social class. They want to create division, whereas that's our weakness. Our strength is our unity. Our unity behind a belief that we are all endowed by our Creator, certain inalienable rights, which among them are life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. That is what makes us strong. They want to divide us. I'll tell you a story. You probably know this, but in the 1980s, there was a war between Iraq and Iran. We were more friendly with Iraq. In fact, we had a pretty good relationship with them at the time, and we supported them. But when the Iraqis got too powerful and they looked like they were going to win, we started supporting Iran. Okay? We didn't want a victory. We wanted both sides to be fighting one another, destroying one another, expending vital resources, keeping them busy, keeping them occupied, making them weak. And that is exactly what they're doing here. It's not a new tactic. They want us divided. So we have to try to take a higher position, communicate in a proper manner. Now it's hard because 20-30% of the population is completely brainwashed. And for them, it's harder for them to acknowledge the truth than the fact that they've been lied to. Okay? To change, it would need a whole new paradigm shift. And that's hard for people. So unity, try to get together and speak in a way that you can plant some seeds. A lot of people are coming over. Look at RFK. Look at Tulsi Gabbard. Look at the black community in downtown Chicago. All right? It's happening. We just got to make sure it continues to happen. Rational thought. again, these are all psychological, right? They are going to try to get you to act in an emotional manner. Take the shot or you're going to die. Wait a second. Out of fear, you make a stupid decision, right? Do not make decisions with emotion. But rationally, let's think about this. Wait a second. The virus doesn't really harm healthy young people at all, right? Most people do okay with it. We already know from multiple doctors that hydroxychloroquine, ivermectin, vitamin C, D, and zinc work tremendously and have had tremendous success. And by the way, the only people that died were people that were in the hospital. So it wasn't the virus, it was the protocol. And that is a fact. We can't identify one person that died of COVID that wasn't in the hospital. Because the hospitals were incentivized to do exactly that. Test you positive, put you on remdesivir, which destroys your kidneys, put you on a ventilator, and then 80% chance you're gone. And that is how it happened. Okay? I saw this firsthand on multiple occasions. That is what was doing it. And these people were incentivized. So, we've got to make sure we stay rational. You know, whatever, stop driving your electric or your gas car, or the world's going to end, right? Wait a second. We've been hearing this threat forever, right? Florida and half of California are supposed to be completely underwater right now. But here we have Obama having 3 homes on the coastline, Hawaii, Nantucket, and Florida. So, you know, all this stuff is complete lies. Algorithms. Be aware. Has anybody here ever been on their phone looking at a social media site, scroll for 5 minutes, and then it went on to 10 minutes, and then 15 minutes, right? You're like, oh shoot, I just lost a little bit of my day. I got to get productive. It's by design. It's by design. It's psychologically pulling you in with the 8 to 10 subjects you really like, and then they start to weaken their own information within them. Okay? It's designed to keep you occupied and off of the important stuff. There's a reason Mark Zuckerberg does not let his children get on social media. There's a reason most of the folks in San Francisco don't let their children get near the stuff. They design the stuff. They know how deadly and lethal it is. So be very careful. Use it as a tool because there is value. Look at your people you follow. Post the stuff you think is important. Do not get sidetracked into it. Predictive programming. These are things we all need to be aware of. Does everybody know what predictive programming is? Anthony Fauci in 2017 came out and said, don't be surprised, but on Trump's watch there's going to be a pandemic. That's predictive programming. They're telling you what's going to happen beforehand, so when it happens, you're psychologically more prepared to accept it. Okay? There's a reason why Bernie Sanders came out during the election season of 2020 and says, don't be surprised. Yeah. Don't be surprised if Trump wins the election on the night of the election, but then after we start counting mail-in ballots, he loses. That's exactly that.
Well, they also said it would take days to know who the president was.
Oh, sure.
So they had to give themselves that. And they kept saying that.
Because they didn't know how many
they were going to need.
Exactly. But this is what we've got to be prepared with.
Yeah.
Have anybody heard of the movie Leave the World Behind?
Yes.
So Leave the World Behind happens to be shown on Netflix, which I'm no longer a member of. The Obamas are big owners of Netflix, and they were executive producers for this movie called Leave the World Behind. And I watched it because I knew what it was going to be. I knew it was going to tell me what to prepare for. And lo and behold, guess what it is? It's an attack on our networks. All communication systems go down, and society goes into chaos. Right? White people are evil. The preppers are crazy. Okay? And there's a lot of other subliminal messages in that. But this is them telling us what to expect. So when it happens, we're not surprised. Now, when you start hearing all this stuff about aliens, get ready. It's coming. It's coming. Now, will it be aliens? No. It'll be a false flag attack by our own assets, but they are going to claim it to be. All these UFO talks, are they UFOs? No. It's all inside jobs. Most likely, it's our own technology that we're using that is advanced that we're implementing. But when you start hearing all this coming from corporate media, they're trying to tell you to get prepared for it. So when it does happen, you're not going to be surprised. Okay? But that's what predictive programming is. And you're going to see it now that you know. Conformity. Avoid conformity. Don't be afraid to be different. And that's the reason the Democratic Party is able to do what they do. Most of those folks, let's face it, they're weak, they're cowardice, and they're just going with the flow. We call them sheep. There was an experiment done by the CIA. And listen, we all want to be accepted, we all want to be part of the group. But in the 1960s, the CIA did an experiment. And they grabbed 17 agents and a person who was in a white jacket, looking like a professor of some sort or scientist. And then they took one civilian. This is who the experiment was on. And they had them lined up in a row, 18 people. The first 17 were CIA agents acting, and the last was the lone civilian, part of this experiment. But the experiment was the scientist was going to show you a piece of paper, and on it was a shape. And you just had to report what shape it was. And we lifted it up. It was clearly a triangle, three-sided triangle, perfect. And when he went down, the 17 CIA agents playing in the role, they all said it was a square. Oh, a square. The poor guy, the 18th guy, he's like, what? It's supposed to be a triangle. Well, when it got to him, what do you think he said? Square. This is the power of conformity. This is the reason they're lying about Kamala Harris's poll numbers. This is the reason they're lying about using AI to put crowds in her audiences. They want you to believe that's the way to go. It's conformity. It's all false information. But we have to be aware of it. Whistleblowers. Whistleblowers are the key to our success. Because there's a lot of people that know a lot of things. But if they don't let it out, and we all know a little bits, but there are people that are in much better positions to have much better detail on some of the atrocities that are taking place. And we need them to come out. But the problem is, if you do, there's repercussions. So we need to figure out a way to protect whistleblowers, encourage whistleblowers, and make sure we get the truth out in a massive manner. So these are going to be the key to our success. So we need to encourage, help, support, and figure out a way where we can make sure that these come out more often. And then focus. The globalists are going to try to distract you from what's important. They're going to try to talk about crowd size. They're going to try to talk about some felony charge. But the reality is, what's really going on here? We've got open borders, which is allowing invasion to take place. Our economy is failing. Record inflation has everybody struggling. Majority of the people in this country are living paycheck to paycheck, barely able to get by. Okay? We're at the cusp of 2 wars, and World War III is around the corner. That's what we're dealing with. Let's not get sidetracked with the silly stuff, crowd size and stuff, because they're going to try to get you to talk about that stuff. Stay focused. Our economy is failing. Our border is open. We got wars and possibly World War III on the horizon. So Texas, let's see what we can do. When we look at Texas, when I was on the Hill and I was working up there, I talked to a member of Congress, a former member of Congress from Texas, and he said, Larry, I got to tell you, we all come up here to do the right thing. Serve our constituents, support the Constitution, do what's best for the country. But within a very short amount of time, we start making decisions we would never even thought about before we got here. It's not a surprise, but it was shocking to hear it so direct from a member of Congress who was no longer. But this is the system we're dealing with. So to me, that made it clear term limits are absolutely essential, right? We've got to have term limits. But more importantly than term limits, not only just of the representatives, there's an unelected bureaucratic class in Washington, D.C. and in Austin that have just as much power, if not more, that need to be paid attention to. Because these are the ones with the power and the influence. Governor Abbott, I moved to Texas. I was in Illinois trying to fight the battle there, and I said, this is ridiculous. I supported several candidates, including congressional candidates, Supreme Court judges, governors, and we all came up short. I'm like, I got to get to a better fighting hall, because Illinois is gone. In Illinois, even though it's a great state, only 2 counties are blue, but they destroy the whole state. The rest of the people are pretty good. But I came down here thinking we were in a good spot, and then I see Governor Abbott, for the most part, let's face it, that border was left wide open for 3.5 years. We put some National Guard at the end there, and we said we closed it down. So, no, it's a nice act, but to me it wasn't strong enough. And A.G. Paxton was the real reason I came down, because I thought he was the best AG in the country, in my opinion. He was the only one that was suing President Biden with all this unconstitutional activity. And then I find out when I get down here, the Speaker of the House leads an impeachment against him. I was blown away. I'm like, how does this happen? Okay, the best AG in the country, from what I can see, the Speaker of the House tries to impeach him, and many, many Republicans joined the bandwagon. Yeah. And when they ran it, there was no evidence. Nobody wants crime, but let's face it, that's lawfare. We saw the damage it's done to poor President Trump, Michael Flynn, General Flynn, Steve Bannon is in jail right now, Peter Navarro, he just spent 4 months in jail. We cannot accept this. But this is what happened. Speaker of the House led the impeachment against Paxton, many Republicans filed, and the same Speaker was giving committee chairmanships to Democrats.
Well, he was one.
Yes, exactly. He is one.
Well, that's it. So
I
this
mean,
is-
I was we moved to Jefferson County.
Yeah.
The feelings are Democrats. But as Jefferson County changed to more Republican, they just, that best rhino alive, lots of money in the bank, they own all the real estate in Jefferson County. That guy gave him a good fight, but feelings own Beaumont, Texas.
I know, and I was just blown away. To me, I got a cowboy hat, I got cowboy boots, I was ready to kick some stuff, and then this happened. I'm like, what the hell happened? What the hell happened? So no, but this is concern. Let's face it, Texas is a target.
Yeah.
You flip Texas, it's game over.
Yeah.
So we have got to be vigilant. Yeah.
County is there too.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. Okay, so how do we fix it? Again, it's really easy stuff, but the easy stuff is not hard when you're in a battle of this nature. We got to enforce term limits, right? Through voting. Organizations like yours may want to make an example. Sorry, you've been there for 6 years, 8 years, whatever you decide, but you either support term limits and get it in legislation, or we're just going to have to vote you out after 6 years. Or as soon as you fail and demonstrate you're no longer committed to we the constituents, which happens all too often. So we got to get term limits in. We got any representative pushing lawfare. That'll help simplify it. We see how lawfare is being used. Vote out any representative who supports Democratic chairs, okay, in a Republican majority House. Vote out elected officials who is not committed to closing the border. And I mean, we can talk about it, but let's face it. You talk to the Border Patrol, they'll tell you right now, it's wide open. And only vote for candidates committed to voter integrity, clean rolls, and we talked about it. Same-day voting, voter ID, etc. So that's all we got to do. Next. All right, Texans are different though, right? Got a fighting spirit. There's a very popular quote. Well, I don't know if you ever heard of it, but I love it. But never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world, for indeed it's the only thing that ever has. You are a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens. And throughout global history, this is what has changed the world and shaped the world. We need to grow numbers. We need to get more truth out there. But we're making significant progress. And the beautiful thing is, and this has been said by a couple different folks, but this was Bernstein written on Weinstein was on an interview with Tucker Carlson. He goes, we're in a pickle. We're fighting against a very smart force. The globalists are smart. They're the top at finance, politics, and business, and pharma, and media. So these are the top rungs, not the whole systems. We got a challenge, but I like our odds. Because we got folks like Tucker Carlson. Obviously Donald Trump leading the charge right now. You got folks like Robert F. Kennedy. You got groups such as your own. You got more groups of this nature growing and popping up. The truth is coming out. So we're in a challenge, we're in a fight, but we're in a good place and we can prevail as long as we continue to fight. Thank you for your time. If you have any, you have time for questions?
Go ahead, yes.
Yeah, if there's any questions, I'll take, you let me know how many you have, how much time we have.
Go ahead.
Questions, anyone? Sir?
Where do you see the Freemasons as far as globalists?
Yeah. So this is something, there is a connection. And I can't say I have a real good depth, but Satanism, the Freemasons, what's going on with our young children, they're all connected. And that's actually my next pursuit, is to try to figure out how they're molding together. I don't have enough information to give you a clear answer on that, but I can tell you from what I've discovered is there is a definitive connection between all those groups of evil. And this is a spiritual battle. This is a battle between good and evil, no question about it. But they're on the bad side.
And having said that, how do you see the Vatican involved with globalism?
Well, we know. You know, I'm a Catholic. Probably most people here are Catholic. I am so furious right now. We know he's a globalist. We know he's a socialist. He's deeply involved. They're deeply involved. Absolutely.
I'm sorry. Why do you think they excommunicated
I speaking to him.
Yeah. No,
I wanted your opinion.
Yeah, no, they're definitively involved. Again, you know, that's a whole other. This gets so deep.
I just wanted your validation, basically.
Yeah, you got it.
For sure.
Yes, ma'am.
So how much of all of, in everything that you kind of shared, because I like to believe in our government to an extent.
Yeah.
Okay? And I understand, I'd like to believe that they're not, just trying to kill us all. And I know that that is happening, but how much of the things that are happening do you think is basically preparing us for some type of attack? Because in some ways, if you think about all of the weather that happens, which here in Texas is, we have bad weather, but not like the stuff we've seen recently. So I'm thinking weather warfare. But as a result of that, we are all getting more prepared, right?
Yeah.
We're getting generators, we're saying, okay, we're looking at the grid, we're doing a lot of stuff. Same thing with security.
Yeah.
So having been in circles that I'm not in, how much of that is ever in government, or do you know, creating the scenarios for the community so that we can get somewhat prepared?
Yeah.
Or is that just nil, doesn't exist?
No. This is what I will say, and I've said this many, many times. Washington, D.C. is rotten to the core.
Yeah, that's right.
At the top rungs. When you look at the FBI, the CIA, the DOJ, the IRS, as an organization, I would say less than 10% are bad. But 10% in the right place make the whole thing, make the whole thing very, very dangerous and bad. So I have a lot of good friends in the FBI and other agencies, and they're good people. But you are not going to get put into those places unless you're willing to get on board. And they've been running the show for a long time. Minus Ronald Reagan and minus Donald Trump, they've been running the show, okay, for a long time. So they've been able to weaponize our government in a significant manner. And that's why whistleblowers are so critical. But these people aren't stupid. So they're not going to share things too openly. It's a very small, tight group, right? Now, there's no question that, you talk about climate change. Climate change is a joke. But geoengineering is not. Okay, that's a different story. That's man-manipulated weather through multiple different systems, whether it's cloud seeding, which is happening, whether it's the chemtrails that we see being pushed out on our planes, whether it's the system of HAARP that can make earthquakes. Okay, we have that going on. So the geoengineering that they're manipulating, they're trying to say is global climate change, but it's the man-manipulated stuff. As far as something going on between now and the election, I think it's pretty high. I'm gonna say 80%, 70 to 80%, we're gonna have something significant happen. They do not want this election to go through. After the debate, when Kamala gets smashed, they're gonna recognize they got no chance in hell, and now they gotta go, look at, they already tried to kill the man. They tried to bankrupt the man. They tried to jail the man, okay? There's going to be some, because they realize, and it is true, if Trump gets elected, their wish, they've been working for this for, I'm going to say, again, 50 years in a concerted effort, under the radar. Now they're starting to get exposed. They're going to try something very dramatic. I hope they fail, but I do believe we got a greater chance of something significant happening and cutting off the elections. My biggest thing right now is what we're seeing here is a war. Is a war. Look what we're doing. I mean, we are pushing the limit right now with the Russians. Now, Putin's smart. He knows what's going on. And he knows he's got a good relationship with Trump. But, you know, if this administration does something stupid, then the war in Ukraine was completely provoked. And I can talk about that on another subject. But as far as what's going on, I think we've got a real good chance of something bad happening between now and the election, especially if he wins the House, which it most certainly will on the election call. But we must be prepared. Yes, ma'am.
Being that you're a military guy, and with regard to Ukraine, we say as a country along with NATO that they can only do defensive moves, yet Russia is taking out 80% of the power. They've been without electricity in most of Ukraine for 9 months. I mean, we were without it for 9 days and used to be crazy. So psychologically, it was like, how do you feel then?
I will tell you, with the Ukraine war, it should have never happened. Should have never happened. I mean, if you look at NATO, NATO was developed for one purpose: to suppress Soviet Union aggression into Europe. NATO, okay? When the Soviet Union dissolved, so should NATO. But what did we do instead? We started cherry picking all the Beltway countries and bring them onto NATO. So we are encroaching upon his land. Okay, there were two major advancements in 1998 and 2004, and then in 2008, Obama says, "Oh, we're going to make Ukraine and we're going to make Georgia part of NATO too." And Putin said to him, "No, you won't. I will destroy both of those countries before I let them turn NATO," because Ukraine, geographically, is on the belly of Moscow. You know, just like we, during the Cuban Missile Crisis, did not allow missiles in Cuba, Putin's not going to allow missiles. Because once you're a NATO country, you get equipped with certain amounts of weaponry and support. So he said it crystal clear in 2008. It's not a coincidence that a week and a half before Russia went into Ukraine, Kamala Harris was in Ukraine commending Zelensky for wanting to become part of NATO. It was a stick in the eye. And I have very good sources from other countries in Europe that you don't know this, but the Ukrainians were bombing the Russian ethnic portion of Ukraine for weeks before Putin went in. Putin went in to take care of the ethnic Russians. So Putin's not a great guy, but in this situation, he's not the wrong guy. He's not the wrong guy. This is a completely provoked war. Yes, ma'am.
Isn't it, I can't remember the source I got this from, but Ukraine is the #1 in, is it food export?
The breadbasket.
That's the breadbasket, yeah. It produces a lot of food for the region. What is the question? Is that true?
So is it more of maybe a power struggle that the United States, with all the money and the billions of dollars that we funneled to them, I've read in sources that money is not traceable back to where the intended purpose was for. So it's a funneling of money from our government to their government.
The Ukraine people are good people. The Ukraine government is the most corrupt in the world. Okay? None of that. Very little. We have no accountability for hundreds of millions of dollars being pushed into there. We know a lot of it is being positioned back. We know a lot. Zelensky has multiple homes and villas and yachts all around the world. Okay? Same with a lot of the oligarchs. There were several oligarchs that left Ukraine with suitcases full of cash, millions and millions of dollars in cash. So if you look, there's some videos you can see on Rumble, you won't see them on YouTube, of downtown What is it? What's the capital?
Kiev.
Kiev. Downtown Kiev. You got young folks, they're in discotheque, they're having drinks, they're dancing, they're having a party, okay? It's not what you think it is, okay? There is some fighting going on in the perimeter, but the majority of it is in the Donbass area where the Russians have run in there to protect the ethnic Russians. So it's not this massive, and Putin was very critical about this. He did not call it a war. He called it a special military operation, okay? Because it's a declassified. He does not want this to escalate. He wants to keep it controlled and monitored. If Russia wanted to do okay, so the fact that, the Ukrainians are going to win, that's a complete joke. There's no way in hell they can win. And if Russia wanted them gone, it'd be done tomorrow. So, again, this is part of the misinformation push. They're trying to make Putin the bad guy. Because here's the reality. Soros said this about 8 to 10 months ago.
1, 2, 3.
Are you a leader hungry for meaningful discussions and real solutions? Then the Saturday Menudo Club is calling your name. Join us every first Saturday of the month from 11:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. at various restaurants in Houston, where leaders in our community gather over delicious menudo and Mexican food. It's not just about the food, it's about the people who add flavor to the dialogue. We address crucial issues like education, commerce, government waste, family concerns, faith, crime, homelessness, and making a difference. Our gatherings feature renowned speakers who inspire us to take action, and every event is recorded for our YouTube channel and website. Get ready, the Saturday Menudo Club is coming to a restaurant near you. Connect with like-minded leaders, exchange ideas, and work together towards a brighter future. Visit SaturdayMenudoClub.com to join the club today. Remember, it's not just a meal, it's a media experience for leaders. Stay hungry, my friends.
1, 2, 3.
My name is Andy Valdez, founder of Marketing Dynamics. The late Peter Drucker, the father of management theory, believed marketing was critical to your business. He said the purpose of a business is to create a customer through marketing and innovation. Strategic marketing equals immediate success. We offer you speed to market without the speeding tickets. Work smarter, harder, faster. Marketing Dynamics, because the market never stays the same. Please visit teammarketingdynamics.com.